Hi everyone, it's Kimber, the Study Abroad Specialist, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about some of the best ways that you can recession-proof your study abroad semester away. So before we dive into the topic of today, I did want to let you know about a download that you can find in the description box. So I have a budgeting e-guide that you can purchase for $5 USD, and it is really helpful if you are looking to get started with setting up a study abroad budget. I know that this is something that really stresses out a lot of students. And so go ahead and click into the description box and take a look at that. It's going to sort of walk you through everything you're going to need to know about budgeting for study abroad. So how you actually budget for your day-to-day living, for your daily necessities, for things that may come up as an emergency, and also as well sort of forecasting. We're going to talk a bit about that in the video for some of the things that you will know that you're likely going to need. So some of those big ticket items that you can look forward to. So definitely give that a look in the description box. Also as well, during my Learn How to Study Abroad in 30 Days series, I talked a lot about budgeting as well towards the end. And so I'm going to link that series above so that you can find out more information and look at those videos too. So specifically for today, we are talking about study abroad budgeting. And I know that this is something that a lot of students have questions on even before they even know what program they're doing. They want to know, how am I going to be able to afford this? They see the price tag of the program and they're like, okay, I may be able to afford that, or my parents may be able to afford that, but how am I actually going to live once I get abroad? And of course, living in this post-2020 world where economic climates are a bit crazy all over the place, I definitely just wanted to put out some information about how you can not fully foolproof your recession-proof your budget, but definitely as much as you can. And I feel very strongly about this because I experienced this myself. I was studying abroad in the height of the 2008 global recession. So I definitely know what it means to just want to ensure that you can save as much money as possible while you're studying abroad and not have to always call home and ask for more, even though you probably will. And also too, I will just say that obviously we know that countries go through this every 10 years or so. The world basically goes through this where there's ups and downs in the market, but there are plenty of ways to be able to make sure that you are recession proofing your budget. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So the first way that you can recession proof your study abroad budget is to be very, very clear and honest with yourself when you are forecasting. So in my Learn How to Study Abroad in 30 Days series, I will link the video specifically that I'm talking about above. I talked about in detail some of the common and most normal things that people budget in for study abroad. So definitely take a look at that. But you typically have three different, I call them lanes. So you have your daily necessities, and then you're going to have your week-to-week needs. So different things that you purchase every week or every 2 weeks. And then you will have, last but not least, those big ticket items. So it could be software, depending on what you're doing within your studies. It could be just even your plane ticket that could go within it. Or if you're going to be doing traveling, or if you have to pay for your own visa, different things like that, that you have to be able to get to your study abroad destination or have once you're studying, but that you typically are only going to have to purchase one time. So whatever your particular budget looks like, you want to be very honest. So very clear about right now, how much do you spend on food per week? How much do you spend on transportation per week? And of course, let's say you're coming from a country where you drive all the time, and then you're going to a place where you're going to be, let's say, doing the public transit. How much is that going to cost? You want to look at all these things. And I always like to say that you want to build in 3 to 5% more. So just go ahead and increase that of what you might need, because again, as you go through and depending on whenever you're studying abroad, it doesn't really matter. Markets change all the time. And so you want to have a little bit more within what you would need as opposed to less. I know that it, particularly from a student perspective, there's always this need to sort of save and be as cheap as possible. I'll just say that. And in this instance, you don't want to do that, just because you are likely going to be dealing with an entirely different currency, and you want to be generous with yourself in what you're doing. So the way that I always like to recommend students do it is go ahead and start with the big ticket items first. So whatever you're going to be thinking that you're going to be doing. So obviously you have to get there. if housing is going to be part of what you're going to have to be paying every month, as opposed to it being included within the price of your study abroad, you're going to need to factor that in. And again, be generous with yourself. If you feel like there's a certain neighborhood that you want to live in or a certain place, you need to factor that in just so that you understand all of that. Are you going to have to pay any type of traveler insurance, or are you going to a country that doesn't have health insurance for free? You're going to have to pay into that. Or even if you are going to a country that has health insurance for their own citizens, some study abroad programs require that you still get some type of travel insurance. So will you have to pay that every month? You'll need to think about that. And then, like I said, if there's going to be anything specifically for your studying that you're going to need, you're going to have to factor that in. So do you need to get a new laptop? If you have a laptop, is it up to date with any type of software you're going to need? Do you have to have special tools or special books that you're going to have to bring with you? All those different things that you can at least think about, even if you're not completely sure, based on whatever you're studying, based on whatever maybe people that have come before you have done. You will definitely just want to factor that in starting out. You get those big ticket items out first, and then we can work our way down. The next area that you're going to want to budget for is going to be what you spend on a weekly basis. So people have different activities that they do every single week. So for some people, they have a weekly hobby that they like to invest in, and that takes money. Maybe for some people, they want to do a weekly workout class. Maybe you do want to take a weekly weekend trip somewhere. Whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. And of course, you have to factor in your weekly food bill and all those different things. So you're going to want to spend some time going through that and making sure that that is clear. And again, building in at least 3 to 5% more to just cover yourself with any fluctuations within the market. Last but not least, I always like to say with daily necessities, these are going to be things that you're going to need on a daily basis. So obviously you're going to need your snacks, you're going to need your tools to be able to do your work in class, you're going to need a transportation card or whatever that's going to look like for you. So also factor that in too. Now, one of the things I always like to recommend, and we will get into this a little bit later as well, is that for your daily necessities, I always say that you should probably use cash, because cash is always going to keep you honest. And so it's really helpful to just be able to have some cash in a bag. So as you're going throughout your day, you can just pull it out, and then you know that when the cash is gone, even if you want to, let's say, set aside, maybe you're going to the UK and you want to set aside 100 pounds sterling for the day. So each day you have 100 pounds sterling, and you know that's what you're going to need for your day. And when that cash is gone, that is it for you. You're not pulling out any cards or anything. That is really helpful. I know that was something that was very useful for me because I can get a little bit off track when I'm spending money. And so you definitely want to just factor that in. So all these things are going to come into your budget. And of course, any other things that you need. I know that for some people, if they have certain medicines that they have to have and they're going to want to get those before they travel, but they can be really expensive, you're going to have to factor that in. If there's anything else that you're going to have to cover, you want to make sure that's all factored in from the beginning so that you are not missing anything, but that you're also being generous as well so that you can account for the fluctuations in the market. So the next way that you can definitely work towards recession proofing your study abroad budget is to make big purchases on the weekend. So this was something that I learned particularly in 2008, 2009, when I was studying abroad. And obviously there was the global recession. And one of the things that was really tricky, and this is something that I talk about in one of the videos from the Learn How to Study Abroad in 30 Days series, is that you always feel like you are playing cat and mouse with the exchange rate. It's something that you will eventually learn to sort of automatically be able to convert. So you'll know that typically exchange rates don't go too far or too down. It's within 1 or 2% each day. But on the weekends, the markets are closed. And so if you are making big ticket item purchases, so whether it be things like airline tickets, or if you're pulling out huge amounts of cash, or if you have to do a huge shop somewhere, all those things should be done on the weekend if possible. I know sometimes it can't be done, but one of the ways that this is really useful is you know that the market is settled. So whatever it closed with on Friday, that's what it's going to be until Monday. So you have 3 days to sort of say like, okay, within my budget, can I fit this in? Can I go in and rework some things? You know that the markets are not going to change. I know that one of the things that stresses out a lot of students is even though there's not a huge span of change from day to day within the market, maybe there was something that was going to be a little bit more affordable, let's say 2 days ago, and then based on whatever your home currency is, depending on how strong it is that day, now you have to pay however much more, and you're like, man, I could have saved on that. And so I always recommend, and this is something again that I did myself, for any big ticket items, that you purchase those on the weekend while you're studying abroad, because again, everything is settled. You also too do want to be very wise and understanding of the exchange rate. So look at some of the apps online and just spend some time kind of going through and understanding from the time that you get to where you're going, and even before, where is your currency depending on where is the currency of where you're going to be studying. And you want to look at those averages. I always like to recommend students to do it, particularly within their last 2 weeks before they travel. And then as you get there, obviously you are looking at it at least a couple times a week. It may not be every single day, but there's probably an app on your phone that you could put up that it'll just pop up whatever the exchange rate is. And then that way you actually know. And so I have found that that is a really useful way to do it. And particularly if it's going to be something that's going to be much more expensive, that if you do it at least on the weekends, even though it may have cost more than it would have earlier in the week, at least you know that whatever it is, if you have to do a couple of purchases that are pretty big, you will know that between Friday evening and early Monday morning that the price is going to be around the same and the fluctuation is not going to happen. So that is another way that you can sort of work towards recession proofing and not having to struggle over dealing with those changes within the market. So the next way that you can recession proof your study abroad budget is to withdraw cash weekly. And so this is, we sort of talked about it in point one, and it is something that I found to be very important, obviously, as I was mentioning, that just carrying around cash every day. I know that particularly if you are an American student and you're watching this, you're like, what is cash even? But in a lot of other parts of the world, people still do rely heavily on cash. And there are some places within the world where you may go out to an open air market or a different place and they don't even take credit cards or Venmo or anything. So you need to get in the habit of that. I know that if you are a student coming from a place other than the US and you're trying to study abroad somewhere else, you know this. But for a lot of my American students, we're just used to kind of tapping things and pushing things and doing that. And there are a lot of places that they still don't do that. So you just want to keep that in mind. But when you are pulling out cash, you want to be able to pull out as much as possible, as least times as possible, because with the exchange rate, and of course, this is different for each currency, but I can give you an example for the US dollar and for our banks here. You already know that number one, you have to think about what the conversion rate is. So you're thinking about that. And then you also too are going to get charged that basic fee at the ATM. So it usually will ask you, are you willing to, let's say, let's just go to Paris. So we're in Paris and we're pulling out, it'll say, can we charge you €6 to pull out however much money? And then of course you need the money, so you push yes. But then also too, a lot of times, depending on your particular bank, your bank will charge you two different fees. So they could charge you an additional fee on their end to pull out money. And then there's sometimes also a foreign interest fee. So this is something that I didn't really learn about too much until I started pulling out bigger sums of money at the ATM. And I did a couple of transactions. I remember one time where I did on one card, I pulled out a lot, and then I went and pulled out on another card, I pulled out a lot, and then the next day I did the same. And there were so many other fees. And I was like, why am I out of like $200 in fees? And then I called my bank and they were able to explain. So that is one important thing. You already know that we talked about in other videos that you're going to need to notify your bank that you are studying abroad. But during that time, maybe that's a great time to have a conversation of understanding what their particular fees are. So do they have a set fee for pulling out international transactions? Also, too, do they also charge you a fee anytime that you use your card at any type of ATM that is outside of the country? So there's all these little things that a lot of students don't really know about that you need to be informed about. So I would definitely have that conversation. And when it comes to pulling out your money, I would say that if you can pull out as much as possible within a shorter period of time, that's going to work. So again, let's say you are, let's just use euros again. You need to pull out €500. You want to do that. And then if you have to just pull out again, hopefully it's not more than €500. Again, I know that each bank has a limit as well of how much you can pull out every day, but you don't want to be doing that every single day, because again, those fees are going to start to eat into your cash. And whether you are supporting yourself or your parents are supporting you, you don't want to do that. So I always like to just go by the rule of pulling out cash once a week when I'm abroad. And again, most people out there, they have different cards. So even if you want to just go through, and let's say you have 3 different cards and you are going to pull out from one card today, and then maybe you do another card later in the day or whatever that is. But that way too, it's sort of similar to the second point of, if you're able to do it on the weekend as well, that's going to be great, because you know that the exchange rate is not going to change between that late Friday and early Monday. So that at least gives you an idea. And I know that while it may be tempting to wait and say, well, it may go down, at least you're going to know what it is. So go ahead and just pull out cash once a week if you can. If you have to, in an emergency, pull out more cash throughout the week, I would say that you need to pull out more rather than less, because again, if you're just going to the ATM and you're trying to pull out 20 euro, then you're going to have to pay a fee anyway. So you might as well just pull out more. But you definitely just want to try and stick to that, because you don't want to get caught up in the fees. It can be really stressful for students. And a lot of times, even their parents don't even realize it until they see it on the card. Like, what is this extra fee? And then you have to figure it out. So you want to just factor that in as well to your budget. Okay, so last but not least, I did mention it a little bit in point number 1, but I want to just remind you that cash is king, queen, duchess, earl, everything that you could think of, president, of everything. So as I sort of talked about, I know that in some countries, people are, I mean, not necessarily getting away from cash, but it's not always a daily part of life. But with cash, you can do so much. And again, cash is whatever your currency is within those paper bills or coins as well. We know that in Europe, there's so many coins that people use, which is also another strange thing for a lot of people, where in some countries you don't get as many coins, but that's a different video. But I will say that it's going to be really useful for you as a study abroad student to always have cash on you. This is not just because you want to be able to go into the store and buy something really quickly. Emergencies happen. We know that the world that we live in can be crazy and getting crazier by the day. And so whether it be something like an EMP, which can cut out everything, whether it just be that you live in a place that has rolling blackouts or rolling brownouts while you're studying abroad, and suddenly the ATMs are shut down and you're like, I need my money to be able to go buy whatever, you want to make sure that you have cash on you. Now, for the amount of cash, I am not too particular about that. I think that it's going to depend on your lifestyle. For me, I know that I always carried at least 100 pounds sterling in cash every single day. I wouldn't always go through it every day, but I always carry that every single day so that I had it with me. And then, like I said before, if I ran out, I was really strict about that. Sometimes I would just leave debit cards, credit cards at home and just take the cash with me and know that if I ran out of this 100 pounds, then that's all I have for the day, and I have to go to the next one the next day. So you definitely want to just be clear about that, whatever your needs are going to be for your cash. But I would always say that it is wise to go out with some cash on you at all times, because you never know what's going to happen. And I feel like a lot of times with study abroad students, there's already so much happening anyway in terms of what change is happening, and you're in this new environment, you don't know what's going on. And if you need cash really quickly to be able to make a decision or to take a taxi home or whatever that's going to be, maybe your phone died and you can't get on the Uber app, you want to make sure that you have cash with you. And similarly, in addition to for emergencies and things like that, for your daily purchases, being able to have that in hand is going to just make things a lot more easier and just keep you a little bit more honest and keep you on track with your budget. So definitely consider using cash for those daily purchases during your study abroad semester. Okay, and so I hope that this was helpful for you. I know that anytime that we start diving into money and budgeting, people get nervous, they get scared, some people start crying over in the corner, but I can promise you it's going to be okay. It is very doable. I have rarely had a student that I have worked with had an issue with budgeting in the end, because as you go through the process of studying abroad, you get into a certain rhythm and you will learn really quickly, okay, this did not work so well for me in terms of I need to maybe stay away from pulling out money every single day from my account. I'm going to get charged with all these fees, or maybe whatever I purchased at home, I got a good rate on that, but now it's more expensive here. So I need to just cut corners where I can. And again, even if your parents are paying for everything, you still want to be able to honor that. You don't just want to go wasting their money. I'm sure that they are monitoring you in some way. And so you definitely just want to be judicious with that and make sure that you are sticking to a budget whenever possible, and also being smart about the exchange rate, and also being honest with yourself about what you're going to be spending while you're abroad, so that you don't have any particular surprises, and that you can sort of stay out of the fray of economic downturn and of ongoing recessions as we live in this post 2020 world. So with that being said, thanks so much for sticking around and watching this video. I release videos every single Friday and sometimes on Wednesdays and Thursdays as well. If you have not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button, and also share this video with someone that you know that may be studying abroad. I know that a lot of you out there have friends who are also studying abroad, and I want to give the information to them as well. Also, don't forget to check out the e-guide. You can purchase it for $5.99 USD. All about budgeting. It's going to help you be able to figure out and tailor a budget that's going to work best for you. And also check out the videos from the Learn How to Study Abroad in 30 Days series that focus on budgeting, and check out the rest of that series. It was a lot of fun to put together. And so I hope that you will check that out and get some inspiration for that as you head on your study abroad journey. I look forward to seeing you very soon.